derived data types are derived from the primary or the fundamental data types. And we will see in depth. So for one derived data types, we have one chapters, pointers, arrays, structure, union, and all. So for the time being, I have kept so few definitions, one for each of the derived data types. So listen here. So I'm putting one test also at the end. That day couldn't, so I thought and their chapter I'll give you a test. So arrays, most of you might have studied, but if those who don't know, I'll just tell you. Anyway, we are having a chapter, but I'm giving a definition over here. So in primary data types, we had seen there are 4 fundamental data types: integer, character, float, and then void. So using this, we are able to make derived data types like arrays, pointers, structure, and union. So in arrays, it is nothing but a sequence of variables which are given adjacent memory location to store values. And one more specialty is that they have the same data type. We will be having a sequence of variables having the same data type, and they are given adjacent memory allocations. So arrays are like, suppose if I am declaring an integer array, these integer arrays will be according to the size we mentioned, it will be allocated adjacent memory locations. And if I am declaring as an integer array, I will be able to store only integer variables. That means I will be able to create array of the same data type. Are you all listening? So now 67 participants are there. So now the next data type, as we had seen when we are using an array, we will be having a sequence of variables. Now I'll just move on to the next one, that is structure. I'll explain pointer. So array, structure, and union is not a single location for storing a single variable. It's actually a collection of variables. Listen here, arrays, union, and structure will be having, it's a data type which will be able to store a collection of variables. Here also a sequence of variables. Union also is a collection of variables. The difference between arrays and structure and union will be, here in structure and union, we will be able to store a collection of variables of different data type. In union also different data type. But in arrays, we will be having a sequence of or a collection of variables having the same data type. So with the examples we will study in the next upcoming chapters. But for the time being, you just understand the definitions. So here of the same data type, in arrays we will be able to store a sequence of variables. But in structure, if you want, we can have the same data type, a collection of variables having the same data type. But if you want to have a collection of variables of different data types also, you can go for structure. So it will be having a single name. In case of arrays also, we will be referring the collection of variables with a single name. In structure also, we will be referring it with a single name. Union also, we will be referring it with a single name. But now the difference between arrays and structure and union will be like, arrays will be able to store only the same data type, collection of variables of same data type, while structure and union will be able to store a collection of variables of different data type. Now, what is the use of, like, if both structure and union are able to do the same thing, like collection of variables having different data types and having a single name, then where lies the difference between structure and union? In structure, the memory is allocated. So whenever we are declaring variable, next topic is declaration of variable. I'll explain it again. So when we are declaring a variable, whether it is a primary or a derived data type or a user defined data type, each variable will be allocated memory in the space, in the memory space in the memory. So we have studied already that integer data type will be allocated 2 bytes, right? So some allocation will be done, and those memory area will be referred by the address of the location. So when we are allocating arrays or a sequence of variables of the same data type in array, we will be that memory locations will be continuous memory locations for storing all the variables. And now, so when we declare an array, if it is an integer array, it will be allocated for each integer. If it takes 2 bytes, if I'm array, my array is of size 10, or it will be just 2 bytes into 10. That much space will be allocated to array. In structure, if I'm having a collection of variable, one variable is integer, one is character, and and another one is float. Together, how much bytes are required for a structure for each of the variables to hold the value? That means 2 byte plus 1 byte plus 4 byte. That means that much, how much it will be? 4 plus 2 is 6, 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 bytes will be allocated if I am using a structure. Suppose if I am going for a union with a collection of variables, one is integer type, one is second one is a character type, and the third one is a float. The same thing which I had done using structure, I am going to declare using a union. I will be allocated for union, how much byte will be allocated. The size of the allocation or the memory allocation will be equal to the size or the number of bytes required to the variable which will be requiring more space. That means among integer, the second one was character, the third one was float. Among that, as you know, float will be taking more bytes than integer and character. So union will be given only 4 bytes, the largest among the variables which will be requiring more bytes. So in structure, it will be adding up 2 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 4. But in union, it will be allocated the memory required by the variable which require more space. So it will be the same space used by the integer. So it will be allocated only 4 bytes. So when we are declaring an integer variable, it will use the 2 out of 4 bytes. When we are using the character array or character variable, it will be making use of the 1 byte out of these 4 bytes. And when we are making use of the third variable, which is a float variable, it will make use of this 4 bytes. So in all together, it will be allocated only 4 bytes. Here in structure, it will be separately allocating 2 bytes for integer, 1 byte for character, and 4 bytes for the float variable. So this, even if you don't understand, I'll be explaining it again. But for the time being, you can understand that an array will be able to store a collection of variables of the same data type, and they will be allocated adjacent memory locations to store the values. And in structure and union, it is a collection of variables of different data types. Collection of variables of different data types, and they are all referred by a single name. So here the difference between structure and union, again, the difference between structure and union is, here the memory allocated will be the total number of bytes required for each of the variables which are declared under structure, while in union we will be allocating only the space required by the largest variable, and the same memory location will be used by each of the variables present in this collection of variables. Both in structure and in union, and also in array, we will be referring it using a single name. And to declare a structure, we will be using a keyword called struct. And to declare a union, we will be using a keyword called union. So for the time being, you, even if for the exam you are not able to, they will be asking only what are the different derived data types. You can just answer arrays, pointers, structure, and union. So in case, like they are asking for the, anyway, for the unit test, we are only setting the question paper, right? For the final exam, we will be covering all these chapters and it will be clear. Understood? I didn't want to leave it without telling anything. That's why I kept this slide. So one more derived data type is pointers. As you know, there when we declare a variable, you will be given. So in the memory, we will be allocating. So integer a variable, if I am declaring a integer variable called a, this variable will be allocated a memory space which is of size. For integer, how much should be the size? All answer in the chat box. All are there. 67 participants are there. I should see the answer. To everyone, you need privately you should message. All are messaging to everyone. So we'll be allocated 2 bytes, right? When I'm declaring in an integer variable a will be allocated 2 bytes in memory, right? So now you know these memory locations are referred by a memory address, right? So we will be having an address. When we are declaring a variable, it will be allocated 2 bytes and it will be having a address for this the memory space which is allocated to the array. So now the space is referred by the variable or allocated to the variable a, it will be referred by its address. So I'm just putting a number 8067. So it will be given 2 bytes, right? Because it is an integer variable, it will be allocated 2 bytes. Now, when we are assigning a value, suppose, if I'm assigning a equal to 10, what will happen? This variable, the value 10 will be stored in this memory location, right? So this 10 will be stored in this memory location. It will be referred by the address as well as the variable name a. So a value of a will be stored in this address where it is been like allocated by the allocated in the memory. Now, if I am declaring another variable, suppose if I am declaring a pointer variable, the pointer variable in C will be able to store the address of another variable. Here I declared a will be able to store only the integer value or the values which we are assigning to a. But if I am declaring a pointer variables are those which will be able to store the address of another variable. Suppose I am declaring a variable b which is of type pointer, integer pointer. It will be able to store the address of the variable a. So in order to get the address of the variable a, I should use an ampersand sign. So if I am using ampersand a, the variable b, which is a pointer variable, will be able to store the address of a. What is the address of a? Type in the chat box. What is the address of a? Here I have just given the address of a. Message in the chat box. In this example, yeah, Sudarshan had asked ampersand. Yeah, if you give ampersand before a, it will be allocating the, what is 10? 10 is a value, right? Address of a. Here in this example, I told I am 8067. Okay, now it is changing. Value of a is 10. Address of a is, for the example, I have given 8067, right? So if I want to declare an integer pointer, so Darshan had asked what ampersand. Ampersand is in order to get the address of a. I didn't draw it properly. This is ampersand symbol. Ampersand a will give you the address of a. In order to declare a pointer variable, we have to, like if it is an integer pointer, we have to declare int and then followed by an asterisk symbol and then declare b. Got it? So b is a pointer variable. In order to declare an integer pointer, we have to give int star b. Declaration of pointer variables and all we will study later. But if you are declaring a pointer variable, listen here. If you are declaring a pointer variable, this variable called b will be able to store the address of another variable. Here a is another variable which is having the address as 8067. In order to get the address of the variable a, we have to put one ampersand symbol before a. Got it? This and all I will explain it later. So you should understand that if you are declaring a variable of type pointer, it will be able to store the address of another variable. So b will be able to store the address of another variable. Instead of storing the address of the values like integer value or float value, it will be able to store the address of another variable. So by definition, you need to write only this one. Pointer variables are those variables which will be able to store the address of another variable. I didn't mute anyone. So in between, if I am asking also, you should be able to answer. So these are the 4 data types, derived data types that we'll be learning. So if you have any doubts, you can message in the chat box. We will learn these arrays, pointers and all. Pointer operator. Yes, Sudarshan had messaged. Asterisk is the pointer operator and ampersand is the address operator. So in order to assign the address of a variable to a pointer, so first we have to declare it as a pointer. Sudarshan, is it clear? This is a declaration of the pointer variable B. So we are declaring B as a pointer, and then we are allocating. So in the next line, we will be allocating the address of another variable. So in order to allocate, or in order to show that we are allocating the address of A, we have to give ampersand A. If you just give A, what will happen? Yeah, that we will learn. But if I just give B equal to A, it will assign 10 value of A. If I am giving ampersand A, it will allocate the address of A. Is it clear? So pointer variables are declared using the star notation, and to get the address of a variable, we have to use ampersand. Okay. So I'm giving you the link of give attendance. Those who took admission late, you should be knowing that you have to click on this link which I am sending in the chat box and give attendance. Anyway, I have taken the screenshot of all those who are present, but I should cross verify. Okay, give attendance in the chat box. Harshida has not joined. Those who joined late, you have to rename yourself in the Zoom account, and you have to create one Zoom account also. Okay, you have to create a Zoom account and rename yourself with your name which you have given during the registration. I could see in the last class that many of you have joined from 2 devices, and so that's why I'm taking again that screenshot and all. If you have any doubts, you can unmute and speak. Okay. Hope it is clear. All gave attendance. Don't message me later that I couldn't give attendance. Now there are 66 participants. No, it's easy to cheat us, but you should remember that you are spending your money, and this whole year will be going like this, no, for the online classes and all. I don't know, from October 1st, they may give offline class, but still. You are paying fees, so you should be responsible. Okay, we are teaching you. Now, the next data type will be our user-defined data types. User-defined data types. The name implies that user is defining these data types, right? So derived, the term meaning was we are deriving the data types from the fundamental data types. Now, user-defined data types, the users are defining the data types from the fundamental data types. So you should give the definitions properly. I am giving a test also, right? So the data types which are defined by the user as per their requirements are called the user-defined data type. So we have seen fundamental, the built-in functions and the user-defined functions. Likewise, there are fundamental data types and user-defined data types. We can also create a data type from the existing fundamental data type. They are of two types. We can use two keywords in order to do this user-defined data types in order to create our own data types. So they are known as type def and enum. So we are just using two keywords called type def and enum to create our own data types. So type def is a keyword. Type def is a keyword which is used to define a user-defined identifier or a name for the existing data type. What are the existing data type? You know, the fundamental data types are the only thing which is existing, right? After that, we may create a derived data type also. But those data types which are existing, if you want to rename, suppose instead of integer, I want to use some name which will be easy for understanding by all those who are working in under a similar project or under the same project. I can do it with the keyword type def. Understood? So type def followed by the data type for which we are going to rename. That is, here I am going to rename integer data type, which is a fundamental data type, by a name, like any name I can give. The user defined name which I am going to give is marks. Suppose I'm going to calculate the percentage of marks for all the students in BCA. I'm having a projector. Who is talking? If you have any doubt, Praveen, you can ask. Otherwise, you can mute. Okay. So here the type def keyword is used to give a name for the existing data type int. So instead of int, I'll be making use of marks. So the syntax is type def, and then you have to mention the data type followed by the identifier name. So here, instead of integer, I want to rename it as marks. So marks will be having the same whatever integer data type is having. That is, if I am declaring a variable using the keyword or the user defined data type marks, each of those variable will be allocated. How many bytes? How many bytes will be allocated, Praveen? Praveen, just tell me how many bytes will be allocated if I am declaring a variable of type marks, because marks is also like I'm defining or I'm making it as a user defined data type similar that of the integer data type. So how many bytes will be assigned if I am declaring a variable of type int, Praveen? If I am declaring a variable of type int, it will be allocated 2 bytes. Similarly, if I am declaring a variable of type marks, which I am making, which is same as the data type int, I am giving a new name for the integer data type as marks. So marks, if I am using for declaring the variable called subject1 and subject2, it will be allocated subject1 and subject2 will be allocated 2 bytes, right? Subject1 will be allocated 2 bytes, subject2 also will be allocated 2 bytes. So here, instead of using int, I have used, what is the data type name I have used over here? Marks. Okay. Okay. So now those who were not able to give the attendance, you can give answers in the chat box. Okay. Kulsum, no? Umi Kulsum, you are not able to give attendance, means you can give answers in the chat box. I'll be referring the chat box. Okay. So Darshan, you had asked enum means enumeration, right? Yes, that is correct. I'll go to the next slide. I'll explain that. So enumeration is the next topic. So now type def is a keyword which is used to define user-defined data types. Okay, so using the keyword type def followed by the data type and then by the identifier name. Whatever name, if you want to give your own name as a identifier name or the data type name, you can give it over here. So type def int marks. So we are, instead of using int data type, we will be making use of marks data type. marks data type is same as int data type. It will be allocating. So when I am declaring subject 1 and subject 2 using marks data type, each of subject 1 and subject 2 will be allocated 2 bytes. Understood? So how to declare a data? So if I want float and the name of that float float data type should be, so if I'm going to find average, so I want to give a user defined name for average. I want to give a user defined name for average. Type in the chat box how to define a float. Instead of float, if I want to use average, how to give that, how to define it. Give it in the chat box. All of you message in the chat box. Type set, not type set. You have to give not average. All are messaging average. Wrong answer. How to rename float as average, AVG or average, anything, no? How to rename. Type def is used for renaming, right? Renaming our existing data type. So how to give? Javed Pasha, type def. No, it is not average mark. Float. Janani has typed it correct. Type def float average. Type def float. I am going to rename float as average. So second should be our data type. Float should come after type def and then with the name which I am going to rename float. So if I am going to rename float as average, I should give type def float average. Type def float average. Okay. I will put the question later, like in the next test also I'll give examples. Now we are going to the next user-defined data type, enumeration. Enumeration data type is another user-defined data type. And it is declared using the keyword called enum. So using type def, we were using or we were renaming the existing fundamental data types. Now using enumeration, what we are going to do is like we will be instead of using certain names, we will be making use of some integral constant. What are integral constant? Integer constant values. Okay, so if I show the example, you will understand. Using enum keyword, I am declaring a variable called day. Variable name is day, and in bracket you will be giving a set of values or set of enumeration values which we are planning to use. Instead of this, if we are planning to use some integral constant. So if I am giving the declaration using the enum keyword followed by an identifier name and in bracket a set of names, each of these will be referred by an integral constant starting from 0. So instead of Monday, it will be referred as 0. Tuesday will be referred by 1. Wednesday by 2. Thursday by 3. Friday by 4. Saturday by 5. And Sunday by 6. So if I give a set of names inside curly bracket, and then if you are using the keyword enum followed by a variable name, each of these will be referred by an integral constant starting from 0, which is assigned to the first value given in the curly bracket. So all these will be now referred by the integral constant or integer constant. So now if I want to, so I have created a data type called day. And using this data type, which I have named, you can name it anything, you can give it as day 1, any name you can give for this enumeration. And using this, now I have created a data type called a day, which is a user-defined name, which I have given for the series of values. If I am declaring another variable or weekday of the type day, then if I am giving weekday equal to Monday, weekday will be assigned the value 0. If I am giving weekday equal to Sunday, what will be the value? Type in the chat box. If I am giving weekday equal to Sunday, what will be the value? Okay. So here it will be assigned the value 6, right? So here there are two steps. First step, we are using the enumeration, we are creating an enumeration user defined data type called day. I'm creating a data type called day. Yeah, Ligit, if you have any doubts, you can ask. If you raise your hand, I cannot understand. You can either unmute and ask. Okay. So we will be first declaring a user-defined data type, and whatever values we are giving in the curly bracket, the first value or the name will be assigned a value 0 starting from 0. This will be the default assignment. If you want to change the order, or if you want to start from Monday equal to 1, you have to give it, specify it here during the declaration itself. Monday equal to 1. Default Monday will be assigned 0. If I am giving the days of the, or the name of the months starting from Jan up to December, Jan will be assigned 0. But if any of those which we are giving, suppose if I want to give name integer values for your name. So suppose all the students in the BCA classroom, if I am giving within the curly bracket, and I am starting Abjit is the first student, right? So for Abjit will be assigned the value 0. Likewise, the second Abhishek, I think, no, he will be assigned 1. So this enumeration data type, we are first creating a user-defined data type called day. And again, you have to use the keyword enum. Enum is the keyword. Instead of enumeration, we'll be using the keyword as enum. And using the same keyword enum and the data type which we have created now is day, we are declaring a variable called weekday. Understood? Now, if I'm assigning a value using this data type created variable weekday, if I'm giving equal to Monday, then weekday will be assigned the value 0. If I'm allocating weekday, if I'm giving weekday is assigned as Thursday, if I'm printing over here, weekday will be printing 3. Is it clear? Okay, so these are the different types of user-defined data types. Now, user-defined data types and fundamental and derived data types. 3 types of data types we have finished. So the next topic is the declaration of variables. I'll give a small test today because anyway 3 minutes, after that 5 minutes break also is there, right? Because next topic is unless you understand this, you will not be able to go forward. I'll give you the link in the chat box. Many of you are not answering. I saw that last time also the whole. I'll give attendance also. I'll check with this also. Okay. Just give a try. No problem if you are not getting all. Try to answer. After one weekend you are coming, right? Answer all the questions given in the in this Google form. Are you able to access? Don't tell when the time is over that you are not able to access. Unmute and tell whether all are able to access. Now there are 66 participants. I should see submission from all the 66. I can see the count over here, right? If anyone is not able to access, please let me know. Urmila?
Yes, ma'am.
You are not able to access.
I accessed, ma'am.
Umi Kulsum, no, her name, I pronounced correctly, right? Umi. So you are able to access? Umi? Try to answer the questions, otherwise I can send through WhatsApp also. Even if the connection is lost, you can answer those questions and submit, okay? I will connect, I will be checking the answers. Actually, we should make 1 hour. Otherwise, it's only like one word question type, you should all try to answer. Even if it is wrong also, no problem. And all my video, whatever classes I am taking, I have put it in the Google Classroom. So Harshida and all those new students